Guess I'm famous now. Yeah.
I have got something better.
Anti-Tracker says, Joe, I know you loved your Jeep like a man loves a Jeep, but have you ever driven a Lexus? Son of a bitch!
Tell everyone I'll be in Turkestan this weekend, 'cause I know a place where I can get all my kicks. You can meet us there, all the nerds and the turds and our geek friends, and we'll be safe from all the drama and politics. Fridays gets us so excited. Even Coronas are invited. When the week's been long and you're feeling rough, the Untitled Show about nerdy stuff. If everything's wrong and you've had enough, you know the anti-tracker's always hanging tough. We'll talk about the things we love on the Untitled Show about nerdy stuff.
Hey guys, how's it going? Michael J. Crawford, the Anti-Tracker here, and like an idiot, Piano Dean actually sent me an updated version of the song, and I forgot to update the credits. Just one more thing on my list of many things that I need to do. Speaking of lists of many things I have to do, someone who will always remind me of things that I haven't done yet, my good friend, my favorite submariner, Darren Wagner joins us. How you doing, Darren?
I'm doing well. How are you doing after ingesting the most powerful nasal decongestant on the market?
That I gotta say, and I got the box here. I do have to say it was way hotter than I was expecting. I mean, I was feeling pretty good when we were going through some of those hot sauces, and working our way up. And yeah, that hot sauce number 6 was pretty potent, but this was like on a whole different level. I mean, honestly, little nitro kind of scares me now, but we'll see how that goes.
I honestly think the chip is worse than nitro is. But what gets me though is, of course, nobody was looking at you.
Yeah, everybody was worried about Life with Matthew, because
of course, being a Texan, he was going through those hot sauces really with no issues, and all of a sudden, I think he might have accidentally inhaled some nacho dust.
Yes,
and
I think
that's
so too.
That's what probably did it. So he can't inhale gummy, so he should be, okay.
Well, and I gotta say, Matt. And just so you guys know, Matthew is not here tonight, but he is a real trooper. He is fine. Basically because his wife took care of the kids and everything for him 2 weeks in a row while we did those marathon live streams. He's got the kids tonight while the wife is off having ladies' night. So that's why he's not hanging with us at this moment. But he recovered just fine. But unfortunately, he has a little bit of asthma, and that one chip triggered an asthma attack, which is
Yeah.
Honestly, I felt bad because I was really in a conundrum of a situation there. And I understand some people thought I wimped out, but I just couldn't keep going with him sitting there having a real medical situation.
I will confess, at first I was like, oh, I'm 2 minutes and 30, come on. But then I'm thinking, well, what would I do if I was on a stream with somebody else who might need to go to the hospital? You know, that was it was a wise choice, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, I hope to do the one chip challenge again sometime with someone other than Life with Matthew, because I do not want Life with Matthew to ever touch that chip. In fact, I would not be surprised if Life with Matthew never has a tortilla chip again.
But
it's
definitely his kryptonite. Let me tell you.
Yeah, man. And It's just, and I think that, like, to your point about it being worse than the gummy is more Scoville units,
Right.
but that chip gets everywhere and it sticks everywhere in your mouth.
Right.
And so there's no, it's not like localized in any way, where the gummy bear is relatively small.
Right.
And so I have a feeling that the gummy bear is going to be as hot and intense as the chip, but with less of the coating effect,
I have to tell you though, it's probably a good thing you ended it when you did, because eventually we would have got tired of seeing snot draining out of your nose and you spitting every 10 seconds.
It was bad, I tell you.
I mean, I was looking at your face. I was like, that's probably the face he makes when he's by the toilet when he has the flu.
No, you know what? Honestly, no. That's I had not had that much fluid coming out of my head since the tear gas days of the Army.
Oh man! Yeah.
Which did you guys do that in the Navy?
In the Navy, they do that, yes, because it's designed to get you to appreciate the value of your equipment.
Yeah, the mop gear.
yeah, exactly.
And it works in that respect, because you feel fine
does.
when you're wearing the gear, and then you take it off, and you'll say, oh. Although I don't know about you, but like depending on how concentrated the gas is, like when you're in the hothouse where they have the CS gas, you can feel your exposed skin itching,
Right.
and so something's up. But then
I'm sorry. I'm told that it's the same exact experience in the Army that it is in the Navy, because they use the same Army-Navy gear for that kind of stuff. Same manufacturer and everything. Now, my brother in the Marine Corps, I don't know if he did or not. He probably did, because they do a lot of crap in the Marine Corps basic training, but he never talked about it if he did.
I think in the Marine Corps, they just shoot you. It's called the bullet test,
Yeah. Or it's the scene in Starship Troopers with the knife.
Yes. So a quick hello to everybody in the chat. Mark was first, says pseudo first. Well, because it was before we started, but it still counts. Jaeger's in the house. Carlo, Mr. Trent did not like Discovery. Bradley says, goodness gracious, his a-hole's on fire. I'll tell you, without getting into graphic detail, it burned. But not as bad as when I was eating it. Like, it was not like, because the intense pain you have when it's in your mouth, nothing like that. But you definitely knew you had some spicy food in you.
Yeah.
Commander Shran is in the house. Justin, Benny is in the house. Darth Maul. George W. Bush had his pretzel, and Matthew has his chip, indeed. Mike Richards is here from Columbus, Ohio. Cinnabon is here. You don't have to breathe in the dust. Just the vapor coming off something hot will mess someone with asthma up. Well, although, he did the chips, like Darren was saying, he did the chips like they were nothing. Like, I'm sitting there dying, and he's just like, yeah, I can feel this one. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Now, when it came to the bugs, so if you had to do one or the other, the chip or the bug kebab, which would you choose?
That is a tough one. Because I'll tell you this, I do intend to try the chip again, but the chip was extraordinarily painful, but never was I in danger of throwing up.
Right. Yeah.
The bug kebab, I was holding it down the whole time. Like, just the way that your saliva mixes with the insect parts and creates a nasty bug juice in your mouth. It was so hard to not just puke everywhere. So,
and here's Matthew plucking each bug or silkworm off of the stick and eating them one at a time, and you just jam the whole thing in your mouth.
I did it the Army way. That's what?
Army way, yeah. Just get it down.
Yeah. But boy, that was tough. But honestly, like, if you gave me a choice, do the chip again or do the bug kebab again for an equal monetary reward, I would probably do the chip again, but mainly because I want to see how long I could actually last.
Right. Well, if Life with Matthew will not be partaking in the little nitro challenge, then got to remember that the typical YouTube hot pepper, hot something challenge is to go 10 minutes without relief.
Right. Which,
not 2.5 minutes.
I know. Well, and the timer, I guarantee you that timer would have gone for 10 minutes if Matthew hadn't have had the problem.
Yeah, in a way, Matthew ruined the whole thing.
Yeah, he really did. It's entirely Matthew's fault that I am not now independently wealthy.
Because let me tell you, no one really wanted to see Matthew suffer.
Yes, I know. Yes, thank you for reminding me.
But that was the draw. No, I'm glad that he's okay.
Yeah, we're and if you're watching this, Matthew, yes, we are all very much glad you're okay. And so the best part is that if Matthew participates with me in the future, he will have to eat bugs while I eat hot foods. And I think I got the better deal there.
I've heard that a really bad parody of Star Trek was on television recently, or on CBS All Access.
Yes. Yes and no. And I'll tell you, and Indy Tiger throws in $5. Let me thank you so much, Indy. And we let Spinning Fox finish spinning.
I will increase Green's fees on the wealthiest one so that the other 99 can play for free.
I should have the stream
Mulligan
up here.
for president.
And, well, I was just going to turn the volume down on the alert box so it doesn't throw us off, because I can read them. Indy says, I will increase green fees on the wealthiest 1% so the other 99 can play for free. Mulligan for president. Increase green fees. Oh, I like for golf? That's really great, but what about the fact that the 99% really don't play golf?
What's Mulligan's first name? Buck?
Well, Mulligan is a golf term, you know.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, Mulligan. Mulligan literally means do-over.
Okay.
And so,
game.
Yeah. In the game of golf, like, you can set rules for your game, and one of the rules you can set is how many mulligans can you take. And so a mulligan basically means that you can reshoot or re-stroke or whatever you call it. I don't play golf, obviously, but
I met a guy from Scotland named Buck Mulligan. That's why I asked.
Oh, is that? Oh, so you actually knew the answer. I didn't know that.
I actually met a man who was named Buck Mulligan.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And Valor, Matthew is fine. Thank you for asking. I will probably have to say that a couple of times through the stream, but yes, Matthew is just fine. He did have a minor asthma attack, but nothing life-threatening. He didn't have to go to the hospital or anything, but he's okay.
Tricker's lying. Matthew's body is decomposing in his basement right now as we speak. Somebody call the police. I'm just kidding.
Wow. That got dark.
No, it's fine.
And then Captain NKG, thanks for dropping by. Bee's Nest, you say try U.S. grade pepper spray. Well, Little Nitro is technically 3 times hotter than U.S. grade pepper spray. Pepper spray comes in at about 3 million Scoville, which is actually about what the one chip challenge comes in at. The difference is that pepper spray, usually, they spray it at you and you try to avoid getting on you, as opposed to open your mouth and spray it in. Yeah,
if you do enough of those chips and eat enough of those gummy bears, you're going to be impervious to mace.
Yeah,
the cops are going to have to get out the beanbag shotgun or some shit for you.
See, that's what BLM should have been doing. They all take the one chip challenge before they go out and protest. The cops wouldn't be able to do anything.
Break out the crap cannon.
Yeah,
you know what that is, right?
The crap cannon.
The crap cannon is a low frequency weapon that uses infrasound.
Yes,
and it makes you lose control of your bowels and your bladder. And the idea is it's supposed to embarrass people so they'll go home.
Or, as they call it, the Karoga gun.
Yes, the Karoga gun.
So Sci-Fi says, do the next chip challenge with LDG. I'm sure you would jump at the chance. Now, funny you should mention that. I know LD was being very boisterous and calling me a wuss and everything because of what happened the first time around. But I would do the chip challenge with LDG only under one very important provision. I will say this straight up. That chip is no effing joke, right? do not take it lightly. Just because you may eat spicy foods, this is on a whole other level that you do not, nobody eats food that hot. Nobody. It's not even possible. And so if LD wants to do the challenge, that's fine. But I don't know if he has roommates or a significant other or anything like that, but somebody else needs to be there in case something bad happens.
Yeah, not just his dog.
Right. And I am not kidding about that. I will absolutely not do it with someone who's sitting at home alone. Because, my wife was on standby in case something happened to me. Mrs. Matthew was there, fortunately, because she helped him get what he needed to recover. So, yeah, you do not do these kinds of things without some basic safety precaution. And, I mean, the most basic thing, someone's there to call 911.
Right.
And so absolutely, I would absolutely do it with him as long as he can guarantee me that someone else will be there with him.
Yeah, definitely.
There's
there's no reason to potentially harm yourself or kill yourself over a food challenge.
Right.
It's just not. It's just not. Yeah, not worth that at all.
Yeah, and like for example, Mrs. Antrager's downstairs right now. I still have, the 7 through 12 hot sauces here that I have not sampled, as well as little nitro. And I'm thinking about just creating a running tally to eventually get to those, or doing something, special events with other people like Life with Matthew. I don't know what I want to do yet, because I did have a lot of fun. Even as disgusting as some of the stuff was, I think it would be fun to have like other people come on and take on the jelly beans, take on the various spicy things. But they would have to go jelly beans, no problem. You don't have to have someone else there. They're just gross. They're not. They're not going to hurt you, but they are disgusting. Same with the crickets. And the bug kebab, stuff like that. But the super duper hot stuff, no, because for all you may not realize you have a very mild asthma or something, and it triggers something, and next thing you know, you can't breathe, and everybody else is panicking as you die on a live stream. So we don't want that.
LDG did have an interesting idea. He thought maybe you should try eating Rocky Mountain oysters.
I'll pass on that one.
Well, you can have your wife prepare them any way you like.
Well, it's not that. I mean, I've actually had. I haven't had Rocky Mountain oysters specifically, but I have had some pretty gross foods in my day. But the problem is there are certain things, and it's not really even the flavor as much as the texture of some foods. The bugs almost got me. But there are some things that I just can't keep down, and I don't want to puke all over the place. And I think the Rocky Mountain oysters would do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, granted, I know a lot of people would think it was hilarious to see me puke, but at the same time, I would just soon not do that on a live stream. Darth Maul, if Matthew dies, you take his wife as your own and take care of his kids. Queen Mrs. Antichecker still reigns. No, if Matthew died, his wife would just become one of the many widows in Karoga. Because most women in Karoga are widows.
I don't think Bird would be able to handle a chip either.
Oh no, honestly. I don't think he. I joked about it, but I wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't want him to, because he's got health conditions.
Right.
I would not suggest he do the hot sauces or the chip or the little nitro. I would definitely send him a case of those jelly beans, though.
Karogan jelly bean.
Yeah. That's what. Honestly, that's what it was. That's what it tastes like. Karogan jelly beans. Oh man.
Oh man.
And Bee's Nest, as far as in the one chip challenge, this is made with Carolina Reaper, which is the current record holder for hottest pepper. And so it is, it is serious. And the problem with the Scoville scale, and this is like something we had kind of a tough time nailing down, is like when you look at a sauce, like this particular sauce, number 10 on the 12 level pain game here. It has Carolina Reaper in it, in addition to scorpion pepper, habanero pepper, jalapeno pepper, and then it has 1 million Scoville capsaicin extract, or however you say it. But that's 1 million Scoville per what? Per bottle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Per serving, but then what's a serving? And I don't think it even says. So I don't know. It does say warning: do not drink bottle. So I mean, but so that's something that's kind of hard to nail down. I know that this chip is supposed to be somewhere in about the 2 to 3 million Scoville, and that's easy to measure because you're eating one chip. I don't think does it actually say on here anywhere? Do not eat if you're sensitive to spicy foods. Yeah. And
have you ever seen a Carolina Reaper pepper?
Yes, they look like death.
They look like the heart of Satan with a little demon tail on it.
Yes,
Yeah.
they absolutely look disgusting. Yeah, it doesn't say exactly what the Scoville count is on this, but I believe it's like around 2 to 3 million. The little nitro is actually 9 million Scoville, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
pure capsaicin, or however you say it, is like 16 million.
Yeah. So they had to account for the mixture of gelatin and gummy.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And Bee's Nest, what's number 12 on the hot sauce challenge? It's the exact same recipe as number 10, but instead of 1 million Scoville extract, it's 3 million Scoville extract, in addition to all those various peppers.
wow.
So I mean, I would, based on what the descriptions of these are, this is probably as hot as the one chip challenge, which is scary to think about. And let's see. Tim says down 7-12 right now. Do you know what he's
7
talking
through
about?
12, down 7 through 12 right
down
now.
7 through 12. Or I'll tell you what, Tim, I will do that if right now you hit my PayPal with $1 million.
Watch him do it, and then what are you gonna do?
Well, if he actually did,
That one-
I got a bag of chips right here. I'll start doing them.
Yeah, I think you just meant you drink the bottle. What you do is you do that thing where you kind of throw it off to the side, but you hold it and you tilt your head so it looks like you're drinking it. See,
Yeah,
I did it.
Oh, it's so hot. Yeah. No, I mean, I would have to do it on chips because, I mean, I don't want to die. Yeah,
Right, right.
Sorry,
You're
no
a
amount of
millionaire.
money is worth dying it for.
You're a millionaire. You don't want to die right away.
Right.
Yeah.
Malfi says Rocky Mountain oysters are pretty good. I find that doubtful.
Depends on how they're
But
prepared.
yeah, I don't know. I've never had them, but yeah, I don't know what the texture is like on them. Oh, I see Daniel is here. Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
Hi, Trigger. What's up?
Hey, so since
Sorry,
you're here, and
someone
I know
else here.
Darren, I'm assuming you have not watched Discovery yet.
I have not.
All right. So, because we started to talk about, then we got in this whole Scoville discussion. So let me tell you my takeaway on the Discovery Season 3, Episode 1. It's different. It's hard to even call this a parody of Trek because this is not like Trek, but they're not even trying to make it like Trek in any way, shape, or form. This is, I mean, we know from the end of season 2, they're like 900 plus years in the future. And the Federation is gone. There is no United Federation of Planets except for like little remnant groups.
Gotcha.
And so, and in fact, the first episode, there's only one regular cast member in the episode, and that's Sonequa Martin Green's Michael Burnham. As she lands on this planet in the Red Angel suit and is trying to figure out what's going on, she learns the Federation is long gone. There's like this, the burn, as they say, happened a couple of 100 years prior, and the burn involved the complete well, near complete elimination of all dilithium in the galaxy, which means that basically warp travel is now a very difficult thing. Because dilithium is a very rare element, and you have to have a dilithium recrystallizer in order to, keep dilithium working. And so, but they haven't explained why that happened yet. I'm assuming they'll unpack that as the season goes on. There's a capitalistic exchange that goes on that seems to be run by the Andorians and Orions, which kind of throws me off because I'm like, if you're going to do this whole capitalism exchange thing, where are the Ferengi?
Right.
That seems like such a wasted opportunity. I mean, especially since, I could just see, how would Michael Burnham react to even seeing a Ferengi? So
exactly. Yeah.
That they missed an opportunity there, but we don't know what's behind the exchange yet. For all we know, the Ferengi are in charge. They're just kind of stay in the background.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting premise stuff going on. I will say this: Michael Burnham is less wooden in this than she has been in the prior 2 seasons, but I didn't like that the first episode was all about Michael Burnham.
Yeah, it's the same old shit when it comes to that.
Right, that I don't like, and I'm hoping that when they've, because I'm assuming in the next episode they're going to re-find Discovery herself and the rest of the crew, and we'll get a little bit more time with other characters. This Booker guy that Michael meets actually seems like a relatively interesting character, but are they going to sideline him like they did with Lorca and Pike?
Yeah. See, this sounds like what they should have done in season 1.
Yes.
Have a ship just appear 900 years and try to find out what happened. I mean, this show would have been so much better if they had just started with season 3, essentially.
I think, honestly, what they could have done, and I know hindsight is 2020, but we make Discovery, instead of making Discovery into a prequel to the original series, you make it a sequel to Enterprise, and you make it that Discovery is involved in, Discovery is, say, the first Warp 6 capable vessel or whatever, right? And in the aftermath of the Romulan War, they're trying to figure out something, and they end up getting caught in the middle of a temporal battle from the temporal Cold War and get thrown into the future. And then, bam, episode 2 is exactly what we saw in episode 1 of season 3.
That would work too, but I mean, given what we've seen with what Kurtzman likes to do and how he likes to redesign things, just having it in a ridiculously far-flung future from what we know from previous shows, it just would have been the right thing to go. But I have no, it boggles my mind sometimes why so many people in Hollywood are obsessed with doing prequels, particularly if they're not going to, if they want to do creative things, if they don't want to, if they don't want to create something that looks like it fits in the mythos, but they still want to do a prequel. It's like, I think Hollywood's had prequel mania ever since the Star Wars prequels, to be honest, and those were big hits. Those were big hits. But the thing is that I think the execs didn't realize that the reason why the Star Wars prequels were big hits was because they were Star Wars movies, not because they were prequels.
Right.
And suddenly prequels are everywhere. Enterprise was a prequel. I mean, the JJ films and now this. I mean, we have nothing but Star Trek except for Picard. Terrible as it is, that's been the first non-prequel we've had since Voyager ended.
Right. And I do think if they had done it as a fish out of water, where we can discover this bizarre future without a Federation, along with a crew that came from the post NX era, I think that could have been an interesting way to both get to know the crew and to get to know this future world.
Right.
And in fact, their ship, while being woefully inadequate as far as weapons technology and stuff like that, would be one of the few ships that has virtually unlimited warp capability because they have working dilithium. So
also a spore drive.
Well,
right.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that.
We don't. I actually do like the fact that the USS Discovery has 2 functioning faster than light systems.
Right.
I don't like the Spore Drive, but I do like the fact that it has two options, for travel.
Right.
And that's some of the things I've thought about. Wouldn't it be neat if they a ship had a standard warp drive and then a soliton wave.
Well, they actually do. By the way, show in the in this future the common mode of travel if you have working dilithium is actually slipstream drive.
Gotcha.
And so that is a thing, and that's what Booker's ship uses. And I also have to say this: the way they did the technology in the 32nd century, I think it's supposed to be. Is that right, Daniel?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. It's not holographic, which is what I thought at first. It's actual material that just changes.
Yeah, it's Man of Steel.
It's
very
similar. Yeah, it's similar, but the effect they're using is unique enough to where I like it. I think it's interesting. I know the console shots that you saw in the preview show that console looking very much like a Man of Steel thing, but everything in the room is that material.
Gotcha.
And so that console that he's sitting at is also his bed and anything else he needs it to be.
Neat.
And so it just transforms right in front of him to whatever he needs.
Yeah, and so basically it's all just one big animated sculpture.
Yeah.
Interactive sculpture, yeah. Okay,
and I thought that was kind of cool, and I like that they took the technology in a different direction. But until I start getting more sense of where the story is going, it's hard to make a judgment call to whether it's an improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What did you think, Daniel? I know you've been the one person I know that's really been looking forward to this. So what are your thoughts?
I loved it. I'm so excited. We're finally in the future. Like I said, it's been such a long time since since Voyager. When Voyager ended in 2000. So and after that it was just prequels, and exactly what you said, Darren. Ever since the Star Wars prequels, it's been prequel mania all over the place. It's kind of annoying,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, what's so special about prequels? Mm-hmm. I mean, everything is a prequel now.
The prequel, the biggest problem with prequels is how they end up.
Right.
Exactly.
When you read a normal story, you're trying to find out what happens. When you watch or read a prequel, you already know what happens. You're trying to see how it actually happened. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's a very different experience, and that's why I think a lot of prequels just aren't entertaining. Including The Hobbit. Now, granted, right. in the book series, The Hobbit came first, and then Lord of the Rings. But as far as the movies go, it was the other way around, and we all knew that Bilbo was going to survive because he had to. We saw him in the other movie,
right? So just like we knew Gollum,
right? Exactly. So who did you end up caring more for? Well, you didn't care for Gandalf because you knew he was going to come, later in the next story. The ones you really were more interested in sort of the survival were the dwarves that we didn't that weren't accounted for in the Lord of the Rings films. So yeah, the prequel, when you do a prequel, especially for television or TV, you are inviting a whole bunch of extra difficulty for yourself. Not just in what I just said, but also, especially with a franchise like this, you have to make it familiar. And one of the biggest detractors of STD for a lot of us was simply that this didn't look like the same world. We're very familiar with what this world should look like, and this did not look like it. And it's and if they had set this show in the future, post Voyager, post Nemesis, we wouldn't have had as much problems with it. I mean, obviously the Klingons being different, we would still have questions about that, obviously, and their ships looking so much different. But 900 years in the future, yeah, I mean, the Klingon ships can look exactly like what we saw in the first two seasons. And the Klingons themselves, they seem to want to do I saw some clips. They seem to want to make every alien from classic Trek have more pronounced features. Like the Andorians have these great big facial prosthetics in their makeup now that they didn't have on Enterprise.
Right. And I do, and I know someone commented on the look of the Orions earlier. I don't like that they feel like they need to change everything. And the funny thing is that, you know what, they didn't change the Vulcans. Why do you need to? And granted, TNG was guilty of this. Why to change the Romulans? What was, what's the point, if you will, to that?
Well, they did also establish, though, that some Romulans didn't have the pronounced ridges. They just never explained it.
Right. Well, but that wasn't explained until Picard, of all things.
Right. It wasn't fully explained, but at least they showed you examples of Romulans that could pass for Vulcans. It's just we'd never seen the big-headed ones until TNG. But I understand what you're saying. It was a makeup change.
Right. And if they want to do a, I remember I was one of the people that when I saw Star Trek the Motion Picture, when I first saw it in theaters, I was mesmerized by that opening shot of the 3 Katinga-class battlecruisers. Yeah. And then you see the interior, and I'm like, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
You know?
They got the goatees. They got the ruddy complexion. They got the goatees, but everything else is different, And
right.
What's that language they're speaking,
Right.
Yeah.
And now I could get past that because they realized the Star Trek universe in a way that we didn't know was even possible. Right. That was the thing. Like when I saw the Klingons the first time, I was like, these don't look like Klingons. But then by the time you get through Star Trek 3 and you've gotten to see the Klingons a little bit, you're like, okay, this is just what they would have looked like if they had a budget for the original series.
Right.
However, then they created the whole thing from Trials and Tribulations that, okay, no, it's canon that they actually changed their physical appearance. Okay.
Right.
But that's fine, but I was okay with the visual style change because Star Trek wasn't suffering for it.
No, it wasn't.
And that's, I think, the problem that we run into with shows like Discovery is that it's just change for change's sake. It's not a change that improves the universe. It's just a change.
Yeah. I can totally see that, Secret Hideout introducing a Ferengi and them just changing them into mouse people or something.
Yeah.
Like giving them mouse nose or something. No offense to Daniel's Hot Topics. I know he likes the show, and there's plenty to like about the show. But, I don't have a lot of... There's a pattern of behavior is what I want to say. Mm-hmm. We kind of know what to expect from them now, and unless this whole Viacom thing really changes things... let's say they have to, everything they do has to go through some sort of paramount, vetting process. Then, we'll see. I did see on Facebook that Sonequa Martin Green apparently announced a 4th season of STD now. I was kind of shocked when I saw her video because she doesn't seem to have a lot of hair. She keeps her hair very tight to the skull. Mm-hmm. So that she can probably wear hair pieces and and hair extensions and stuff like that. I guess actors want to keep their hair short and they want to stay thin. That helps them.
Well, and it is easier, especially if you're a woman, to have short hair and wear wigs than to, because with guys, generally speaking, you don't have a lot of things where you need to have long hair.
Right.
And so it makes it so that you can just make it look whatever needs for that film. Cinnabon, I do want to address one thing because he's mentioned a couple things about the warp drive thing. That well, wait a minute. What about if we have all this weird nanotechnology where things are changing form, couldn't that be the power source for their warp drive? Well, the lithium crystals is not a power source, and so
just helps regulate the reaction.
Right, and so it's a matter-antimatter reactor, and at least from their description, it's not a problem with matter-antimatter reactors. The problem is specifically with the lithium, and that and I'm sure they'll get into it, but you could make the argument that there's some reason that it's not working. Although, I mean, even like, well, does I've heard people argue that, well, wait a minute. Romulan technology uses stabilized singularities for their power source. So why would they be affected? And it's like, well, they may use that for their power source, but are they still using dilithium? Is dilithium, in fact, a key component to any warp reaction? You know, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And we can argue about what's in technical manuals all day long, but as far as in canon, I don't think that there's ever been a very explicit description as to exactly what the dilithium crystals do.
So we do know, however, that over time the dilithium crystals sort of evaporate.
Well, they break down under stress.
Yeah,
We've seen that in the original series. We've seen it in the films. Yeah.
In Peak Performance, when they took a look at the warp core of the Hathaway, they said there's only a few dilithium fragments left in the holding clamps.
Right.
And so that gave me the impression that, you know, the crystals break down or evaporate, whatever you want to say, over time. But I'm more interested in hearing about the slipstream thing. What did they explain anything about that?
No, only that, but dilithium is necessary for it.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
And so, and that was Booker's problem, was that, you know, in that initial scene that they show where Burnham crashes into his ship and then she crashes into the planet. Well, Booker crashes into the planet at the same time. His ship is pretty much fine, but the impact with the Red Angel suit damaged his dilithium recrystallizer.
Gotcha.
And so now his ship is basically stuck.
Now, see, we had a problem with that one character in, I think, season 2 of the short treks that had a planet that specialized in recrystallizing dilithium.
Yes, Poe.
When we knew from Scotty's dialogue in Star Trek 4 that couldn't even be done in the 23rd century.
Right.
So now we have, it makes much better sense. It's a much more acceptable idea if the story is set 900 years after that.
Yeah.
You know?
And Jason, they didn't steal. I don't know about your idea for Slipstream, but Slipstream drive came from Voyager. That was the quantum Slipstream drive that they developed.
Did Voyager use it, or did they?
Yes, they did.
Somebody else? They did. Okay, I wonder how that works.
And they were six. That was the one where they created. They had to have a pilot ship in front of Voyager because it was going so fast. That like they sent a shuttle and Kim was on the shuttle and Voyager crashed and everybody died, and then Kim spent his life trying to figure out a way to undo it.
Yeah, I missed that episode. That sounds like a lot of episodes of Voyager, though.
Yeah, but they actually got an Emmy for that one, I think, for visual effects, if I remember correctly, from the crash scene when Voyager actually went down. And Tim, it's funny because he tells Burnham his name is Book, but then later he's referred to as Booker. So I don't know. You know, so I don't know. I don't know if it's officially Book or Booker. I haven't looked him up on IMDb or anything like that.
Is his last name T?
Well, that's why he was saying it's not T.J. Booker.
Booker T in the MGs.
Star Trek Discovery. The cast. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to read a stupid article. Yeah, Cleveland Booker. His nickname is Book. His name is Booker.
It's his last name. Okay.
Yeah. His first name is Cleveland, yeah. As in the guy from, Family Guy. And he has a cat.
Or maybe the city of Ohio.
Yeah, okay.
That in Cleveland. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's funny because he's the new black guy in the show, and he's named after the black guy from Family Guy.
I've never seen Family Guy.
Yeah. Cleveland is the black guy from Family Guy. So
gotcha.
And I don't watch Family Guy, so I don't really know that much about it. But I just know that, and I know. Huh?
I used to watch.
There's also Booker T. Washington, a famous black author.
Right.
There's also Booker T. from Pro Wrestling World, black guy. There's also Booker T. in the MGs. There was a band in the 60s that made the instrumental song Green Onions. Mm-hmm. Very, So, yeah, a lot of Bookers happen to be black.
And so, I guess the, thank you dreamers out there, the 100th episode of Voyager is called Timeless. So there you go. But yeah, so I thought Booker was an interesting character. Actually, I want to know more about him. He's basically he's an environmentalist, where he's like he basically is a conservationist. He's going around like getting endangered animals and taking them to preserves.
Because I'm sure that exchange group just wants to kill them and eat them. Until
Probably,
they're all
yes.
extinct, right? Yeah. Yeah, see, this is the kind of stuff that really turns me off.
Well, and that's the part. We haven't established that yet, but I would not be surprised if that's where it's going.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe like there'll be an orange man bad message at the end. I don't know.
Well, the Ferengi are all kind of orange, so I'm sure that if it turns out that they reveal that the Ferengi are actually the rulers of the exchange, kind of like how the founders were the rulers of the Dominion. They reveal that, and by the way, they'll probably be female Ferengi too that are leading it, and that's I'm sure they'll be orange, and
and they'll all be wearing like the
toupees.
Trump wigs, yeah.
Yeah, toupees.
But we'll see. I mean, like I said, there's some interesting ideas. It's definitely a different flavor. It's much more cinematic. I will say that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can. I mean, when you watch it, I don't think you can deny that as far as the quality of the production, it's definitely. Even though I don't think that was a weakness of the show, they've taken that up a notch. The problem is that they should be focusing on the writing more than the visual aesthetic.
And then there's the burn.
Yes,
I mean,
and that's
of all the things they could have called it, why they called it the burn? Probably because it has something to do with Michael Burnham.
and that's what I thought when they talked about it. Now, if when they talk about what happened. They're still vague on it. I'm sure we'll learn more as the season goes on, or they'll just drop it like they tend to do sometimes on these shows. But if they do explore it, they did talk about how the end of dilithium was a rather violent event. Like most of the dilithium in existence exploded. And so it would kind of make sense that you would call an event like that the burn.
Yeah, if it burns, yeah.
So, but we haven't got any detail on it yet.
All right. Well, interesting. I'm actually more excited about Strange New Worlds.
Me too. I'm really looking forward to Strange New Worlds, and I gotta say, I'm looking forward to Mandalorian season 2 in just a couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to Expanse season 5, which is dropping in I can't remember, is it November or December? I watched the trailer earlier today, and I can't remember. I think it's December. So there's some definitely. While I'm undecided on this season of Discovery, there's definitely some good sci-fi coming before the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And now, have you watched Expanse at all, Darren?
I tried watching it. Yeah.
What about you, Daniel? Have you watched it at all?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. See, and Daniel, I think you might appreciate Expanse. Because you say, and correct me, you prefer a more dark, nihilistic vision of the future, correct?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes it more fun.
Well, you definitely check it out then, because I will warn you, and anybody out there watching that hasn't seen The Expanse. Thank you, Ensign Ricky. I knew they did drop the date in the trailer, but I couldn't remember. If you haven't seen The Expanse, do not, please, for the love of God, do not start watching it with season 5. You have to go back right now, get Amazon Prime, and watch seasons 1 through 4. Because it is a truly serialized story. Season 2 makes no sense without season 1. Season 3 makes no sense without season 2, etc. And we're talking high-level Asimov-level sci-fi stuff here.
There were some things that ticked me off about the first few episodes that I watched in the first season.
What was that?
Well, one of them was Jonathan Banks. He was in like the trailer for that show, but he only had a cameo, and his character was only on screen for like 10 seconds.
Who is Jonathan Banks?
Jonathan Banks is a character actor. You know him if you saw him. His most notable thing recently was he played Mike Ehrmantraut in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Oh, okay.
And as an actor, he usually, back in his younger days, he either played a criminal or he played a cop, because he could do both, because he looked like that kind of guy. He has kind of a droopy eye and
Right.
such. Yeah, and so I like him a lot, and he was going to be the captain of this ship, and then he's not. It's like he gets.
He was the captain of the Canterbury.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he gets replaced right away.
Right.
The other thing that really upset me was, for a show that is supposed to be more accurate to what space is supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
the scene where they had a softball-sized hole in the hull while they're in space, and they had time to patch it up, didn't sit well with me at all. And at that point, I had a problem with that, so I just stopped watching it.
I will say this, is that I know that you're talking about that was when they were on the Martian ship and a railgun hit the room they were in, took the head off of the guy that was sitting there, and then they had a hole in the wall that they were trying to deal with.
Right.
Now, I am not a physics expert. I don't know what would happen if you're in a pressurized room exposed to a vacuum with a hole that size, right? I'm not going to pretend to know, but I do know that a lot of people have celebrated this show for being the most scientifically accurate show, spacefaring show there's ever been. And from what little I know, and I know we have some fundamental disagreements on this stuff, Darren, but that aside, from what little I know, that they would be correct. This is a very accurate show. As far as the physics of how quickly the air would leave and how easy would it be to seal the hole and the way that they did it, I don't know. I'll leave it to them that they did the research on it, but I genuinely don't know. But I will tell you, Darren, if you can get past that stuff, the big problem with The Expanse is that the entire first season is a very slow burn. You're basically just barely getting to know a lot of these characters, and even like what you do know about them at the beginning is genuinely not what that person is. It's just a facade for almost all of them.
Yeah, to this day, the most accurate space show I've seen was actually Firefly. Their depiction of space. Anytime something happened out in outer space, out outside the pressure hull, it was mute. There was no sound. The scene where Jane has to put his gun, his special gun, Vera, into another spacesuit because it needs air around it in order to fire its projectile, and it shoots through. He only gets like 2 shots or whatever, and it shoots through the face plate, and that was some great stuff. And I did think that I like Thomas Jane, and I did like the stuff with the water rationing and the gravity torture and all that kind of stuff. That was fine, but when I got to that point, it pulled the plug for me. Same thing happened on Enterprise, believe it or not. When I saw, I think I did a video for this about this on your channel.
Oh, the Shuttlepod 1 episode.
Shuttlepod 1, yeah. I totally gave up on Enterprise the first season. I didn't come back until Carbon Creek in the second season. That was I believe the first regular episode of season 2. So I mean, that kind of stuff is and I know other people don't have a problem with it, but it bothers me. So
the funny thing is, and this is something that I've argued about with people all the time, is ultimately what matters is it entertaining to you? If it's not, don't watch it. That's why I do tell people, if you find the premise of assuming that they advertise it reasonably accurately, if you find the premise of a show offensive, don't watch that show.
Right.
Because if you don't like the premise of the show, you're not going to like the show. That's kind of a given. I know that might seem painfully obvious, but and so if the Expanse, if it turned you off there, I understand. But if you can get through that first season, wow, the directions it goes, you will not see coming.
Right. And you talk about false advertising of a show or a movie. That does occasionally happen, especially when the makers know it's not going to be very well received. Already. Before they actually put it out.
Right.
Two great examples of that were a movie called Pleasantville with Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon, and another movie called The Invention of Lying with Peter Gervais. Have you seen either of those movies?
I've seen Invention of Lying. It's been a while. I have not. Pleasantville didn't appeal to me, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Invention of Lying's trailer made it look like this was going to be a funny movie, comedy movie, about a man who can tell lies in a world where everybody, speaks the truth, and so he can manipulate that world and all the funny things that happen with that. But all the stuff you see in the trailer happens in the first 20 minutes of the movie. After that, it becomes an anti-religion movie because he tells his dying mother about a place called heaven. He's making it all up. So
right. The whole idea of mention of lying is the big lie is God.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't like that either.
Yeah. Pleasantville, on the other hand, was a fantasy comedy about two teenagers, high schoolers from the present day, who get sucked into the world of a Leave It to Beaver like TV show where everything's black and white, and as they start corrupting that world with their sin, essentially, it starts getting colors. So there's all kinds of color gags, and the idea being that your sin is what makes the world wonderful and
right,
and stuff like that, and so it's deeply offensive to some people, and but those movies don't even touch on those themes in the trailer. They make you think it's totally something else, and then you walk into it like a walk into a glass barrier or something.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah.
And by the way, let me say this, Valor. Doomcock saying the Expanse is a combination of Trek and Game of Thrones. You guys know I love Doomcock, but there could not be a worse description of the Expanse. I'm sorry. It's first of all, Game of Thrones. The only thing that this has in common with Game of Thrones is that there are three factions that are on the verge of war the entire time. And so you could see a parallel there with and it is, dark, gritty, nihilistic, but it's not like, brothers and sisters spawning future kings, and no, it is not Game of Thrones at all. And it is not Trek at all. It is a vision of humanity's future, but it is not an optimistic one. It basically takes the tribalism that this world is plagued with today and doubles down on it, as the tribes are no longer nations, but not even just planets. It's Earth, the Belt, and Mars. And those three tribes hate each other. And as Dreamers Out There, it says, then the most important moment in human history happens, which is towards the end of season 1. And that most important moment then defines everything that happens after that. And how does humanity react to this insane event that happens? And so at that point, it's pure high concept sci-fi. And the problem is, so you got to get to that most important moment that humanity experiences. Once that moment has happened, and you start, then season 2 becomes the immediate repercussions, and that's where things really pick up. And then it goes into like way off the deep end in season 3, and then by season 4 you're like, holy crap, this is a totally different kind of show. And season 5 looks like it's going to have it's going to be another basically, can we prevent war? And Jaeger drops $5. Thank you. Says, are you recovering from the Star Trek Discovery Marathon? I feel you for you eating those beans, bugs, and the one chip challenge. My insides burns too. Yes. I feel, the hardest thing about the Star Trek Discovery Marathon was honestly, well, truthfully, the hardest thing was watching poor Matthew suffer during the one chip challenge. That was difficult for me. But it was like the realization that eating beans that taste like spoiled milk and bugs and ridiculously spicy things made the first 2 seasons of Discovery bearable. So no, it was all right. But thank you. And so, and I know I've been hogging up the microphone, so honestly, I think that The Expanse is probably the single best hardcore sci-fi show to come along in a very long time. And so I think Doomcock is way off his rails comparing it to Trek and Game of Thrones. I think Picard was an attempt to make a Game of Thrones Trek, and that didn't work out so well. And that's actually, I think that's the problem that we see with Hollywood, is Hollywood doesn't understand what makes successful things successful. You know, like you were saying, the reason the Star Wars prequels were successful had nothing to do with the prequel aspect. It was because they were Star Wars. Right. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot lately about the whole get woke, go broke thing, right, that the Phantom Menace has coined and loves to talk about. And the problem isn't that Hollywood has suddenly gone woke, because Hollywood has been woke for decades. Right? As far as what we in the modern age, what we call woke. By the way, did you happen to watch Bill Burr host Saturday Night Live last week?
I watched some of it. Yeah, his
monologue blew me away, because I'm surprised he's even still alive, assuming he is, because he went off on cancel culture, he went off on the woke thing, because he's 100% right. The woke movement was not supposed to be about white women.
Right.
You know,
I listened to his podcast. He has a twice a week podcast, and I listened to that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, he's right here on YouTube. If you can subscribe to his Bill Burr channel, you'll get him.
I'll check that out.
He uploads them the day after they go out, and he usually talks for about an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer. And if you listen to his podcast, he's all about that. But he's very funny, and the scene with the Mafia Don was my favorite one.
Oh yeah, that was good. But I've been thinking that monologue. I was thinking about that. And by the way, me and Mrs. Antishek were sitting there going, "Man, how is he?" You know, first of all, he has some massive balls to be saying this, and second, how does he really understand it so well? And then we saw a picture of him with his wife. His wife is black, and we were both like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that Hollywood has been woke as far as, you know, feminism, blah blah blah, forever, right? Mm-hmm. And the difference is that movies were successful based on one of a couple of things. Either they stumbled across a great story or something, great characters, that kind of thing, or they showed us something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Right, the spectacle.
It fueled everybody. Yeah.
Right. And James Cameron, I blame for modern cinema more than anybody else. And the reason is that he made 3 movies in his career that have all been the #1 movie of all time at their respective time points. Terminator 2, Titanic, and Avatar. Right? All 3 of those movies, wonderful examples of woke, politically driven movies. Mm-hmm. However, with Terminator 2, there's also an awesome story there. Yeah. Right? Yeah. With Titanic, you have the incredible spectacle of them rebuilding the Titanic and then sinking it. Right? Mm-hmm. And with Avatar, the most perfect, complete 3D cinematic experience ever made. Mm-hmm. And what the problem is that in each of these three movies, he created a spectacle. What's really the one common denominator is that all three of those films introduced new levels of visual effects. Terminator 2 with the T-1000, most people have never seen anything like that before. With Titanic, the level that he went to recreate that ship was incredible. And of course, Avatar goes without saying. But what people have latched onto is they think, oh, so it's about Dances with Wolves in space. That's what makes it work.
Right, yeah.
You know, nobody remembers the story from Avatar. They just remember the incredible visuals.
Right.
And I honestly think that Avatar 2, 3, 4, and 5, or however many he's making right now, are going to bomb.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. Now, if he had made them back to back with the original Avatar, then he might make $1 billion each. But the problem is that now, in the modern era, both on television and in film, if you throw a decent budget at it, you can make anything happen.
Right.
And Discovery is a great example of that.
You know what the single greatest, CGI character job has been since Avatar? And that was the Warcraft movie. All of those orcs. And how did that do in the United States?
Right.
It didn't do at all. It made all of its money in China, where Warcraft is also very huge, but they're willing to go to go to see a movie about it. So I mean, Warcraft, the movie, was a technical achievement. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
I loved Warcraft.
It takes everything that they did in Avatar, and it takes it up a little bit, just a little bit. They took this is kind of funny. I kind of suspected they might have done this, but then they confirmed it in one of the little special features. Just as an aside here, they took the ILM's Incredible Hulk CGI model from the Avengers movies, and they just made that the template for every orc in the movie. They tweaked that. I can see that. Because it was already made, and that's how one of the ways they were able to make so many different kinds of orcs and things so quickly for the movie.
I think that the only problem I had with with Warcraft was I think that they really should have focused in on the orc story, which was really interesting. The human story was rather bland.
Well, the human story was supposed to get an additional 45 minutes that got cut from the film.
Well, but you know what? I would say cut the rest of it out and make it into 2 films.
Yeah, they could have done that. They really wanted to have that blue versus red thing going on there, but it ended up being more red than blue. The humans didn't get a lot of screen time, and so that when what's-his-face's son gets killed, it's not that emotional an impact. And there were supposed to be scenes that helped that along. The human parts are just the worst parts of the film, even though those are some pretty good actors playing them.
Right.
The orcs were the more
they were
expensive.
interesting.
Yeah, they were. I mean, the first shot of the movie after you see the logo go away is this close up of an orc's face as he was looking down at his pregnant wife. And that was just a very incredible shot, and it set a great tone for that movie. But again, the movie bombed. Even though it did have a technical achievement, it was just not a big enough technical achievement, I think. Right.
And I don't think that we can... I don't think Hollywood can bank on making a ton of money just off of a visual spectacle anymore.
Right.
Like Endgame, the reason it was such a big hit was not because of the visual spectacle. We were expecting the visual spectacle. It was because it was the culmination of 20-plus films.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, I mean, it was the story that built up to Endgame. Thanos could have literally just been the actor painted purple.
Oh, yeah.
And it still would have been that big of a hit. Right. So the fact that Thanos looked great was just icing on the cake. Mm-hmm.
Plus, it had the whole. I mean, both. Because when I walked out of the theater after seeing Infinity War, I hadn't felt that way since I was a kid walking out of Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
That was the same feeling, and that's the first movie that has done that to me since Empire Strikes Back, and so, hence the success, I think.
That was a big part of it, and because it's funny because I've watched them both a couple of times since then. And I would maintain that Infinity War is a better film.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the battle of the Thor, Cap, Iron Man, Thanos fight, just beautiful.
Oh, it was.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think the Endgame had some great moments in it, but it just didn't. I liked following Thanos' story in Infinity War. And I thought that was an interesting way to bring all the Marvel characters into a single film, was to tell it from the villain's perspective.
And my biggest problem with Endgame was what they did to the Hulk.
Yeah.
And we never got that Hulk rematch. I mean, he should have been directly involved. He should have been part of that initial fight. He's talking about with Iron Man, Thor, and Cap versus
because he was the
Thanos.
other member of the original Avengers.
Yeah, the Hulk should have been there, and not the Banner Hulk that we saw in the film, but the real Hulk. And what
Rage Hulk.
And what I thought they were going to do was, here he had cured himself, but then when he's talking about how much gamma radiation is coming off of the Stark gauntlet because of the gems in it, I thought, okay, here's what's going to happen. He's going to snap and he's going to sacrifice his cure to bring everybody back. That's heroic. And then we'll have the real Hulk back, and then we'll get a much more satisfying confrontation. And the thing that kind of got me was that a Thanos without any Infinity Gems at all was still able to pulverize those three Avengers.
Yes.
And I always assumed, because in the Marvel comics, one of the things that happens to you when you possess the Power Stone is that it just, in addition to whatever else it does, it naturally augments your physical power. So there's and that's a known thing. So when Thanos had the Power Stone in the gauntlet, when his first confrontation with the Hulk, I assumed that the reason why he was so handedly able to defeat him was because of that Power Stone. Then in this other movie, I'm seeing that they souped him up. That wasn't the Power Stone.
Yeah,
doing
Thanos
all that.
is just a complete badass.
Yeah, and in the comics, he's not.
Right.
His strength level is about on par with the Thing.
But
so he is beatable.
But that was what I think. Because notice that in Guardians of the Galaxy, they did say Thanos was the most powerful being in the universe until. What's the Accuser?
Ronan. Yeah.
Ronan, thank you. Ronan the Accuser gets the Power Stone. Then he has now usurped Thanos as being the most powerful.
I kind of assumed that was they were talking about all kinds of power, their political power.
Right. But I think, but they were literally talking about his power level at that point. We just didn't realize it.
Right.
And Yeager drops another $5. Thank you, my friend. We don't need Hollywood. Nice while it lasted, but you all do a way better job providing content. Looking forward to rise of independent productions. And then Galactus. I do want to see Galactus.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I want to see in the upcoming Marvel universe. I want to see Fantastic Four. And then preferably in the second Fantastic Four film, I want to see Galactus.
Right.
But I wouldn't mind seeing a Norrin Rad film before that.
I'm not a huge Norrin Rad fan, but Galactus as an adversary, you don't get. I mean, that's the only way to really top Thanos at this point.
Oh, I think there. No. You see, I would not even make Galactus. And here's what I would do then: is then you have like they did with Thanos. You start teasing the behind the scenes bad guy manipulating in it, and you make it Doctor Doom.
Oh, right. Yeah, Doctor Doom first, but then how to top Thanos on a cosmic level is.
I got that
the
for
next
you.
Step the next step would. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you have Galactus as a major event, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be like maybe 3-4 years into these. Once they get production rolling again, you go 3-4 years in, you have a Galactus event. And then you work your way up to Doctor Doom is pulling the strings and stuff. And then for your Infinity War film / Endgame, you bring in Secret Wars.
Yeah, the Beyonder would be probably the end, the
ultimate
end result. I mean, because you're talking about And the way Marvel Studios usually does it is they blend multiple characters into it, so that not exactly the same. So I could totally see them having the Beyonder be some sort of celestial or something like that, instead of being this, this godlike being from another dimension that comes from a dimension where it's all him. Is and there's nothing else in there but him.
But they've kind of, honestly, because, like you said, they do sometimes do substitutions and alterations, right?
Right.
What if you simply replace the Beyonder with Dormammu?
You could do that. Dormammu certainly does have a hate-on for Doctor Strange now, and
for because the way that he's described is that he is the ultimate power in his universe.
Right, but Dormammu, right now Dormammu could be anything, but he was actually evil in Doctor Strange, whereas the Beyonder,
it's kind of neutral. He
wanted to observe human behavior is what he wanted to do. That's why he created the war world and brought the heroes and villains to that planet to observe their behavior. And so they could do it. They could do something like that. I was convinced that they were going to substitute Hela, the goddess of death, for the actual death personification that Thanos.
I thought they were going to do that too.
And I thought that's brilliant how they tied it all in, and then they actually I think did it a little bit more. It was more esoteric the way they did it. They didn't have him just be this guy who had the hots for somebody, and wanted to impress her. They turned it into an actual mission of his, a heroic mission.
Piano Dean, did I miss a super chat? Oh man, I'm sorry. Hold on. And that was my bad. I've been so wrapped up in the conversation. Keep going while I'm bringing up
I don't understand, though, why, after so many demonstrations that we, the public, have made regarding what happens when you go woke in something, and how you don't make any money, why they continue to do it.
Yes. And
it's almost insanity, right? That's one of the definitions. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And maybe they just think they're wearing us down or something. But I think it's actually galvanizing our resolve. Eventually somebody's going to want to make some money somewhere, and they're going to take a look at what worked once upon a time, and they're going to try to emulate that. And they're not going to include, bitchy women that get away with it. And sympathetic, sympathetic, whatever you want to call it, men,
right?
And they're not going to be worried about representation or anything like that,
And Doubting Thomas, I apologize for missing your super chat earlier. Let me see if I can get this working here. Hold on, guys.
You haven't seen the second season of The Boys yet, so we can't talk about that. But there's an example of what happens when they try to make the Seven a little bit too representative, and Homelander doesn't agree. It was a pretty shocking scene right away in the beginning, the first episode.
But you see, I'm surprised from what I have heard about The Boys season 2. It sounds like they kind of went down the. Double down on the more liberal aspects of the show, but I don't know how much truth there is to that. But
I kind of saw it both ways. It's clever enough show that you can see it two different ways, I think. But the interesting thing that I saw was that anytime you'll notice that all of the DC pastiches, all the DC homages that are in The Boys, they're the elevated superheroes, the ones that everybody likes. But the ones that are based off of Marvel characters are the ones that never make it. They're the failures, and I think that's kind of funny. That might be just a statement they're doing because of the success of the Marvel movies. But if you want me to spoil something about the first episode, I will. I want because it is interesting. Okay, well. The people behind the Seven want to introduce Homelander to the newest member. They haven't released him to the public yet, but they're planning on doing it so by the end of the week. He's the first differently abled member of the Seven, and basically he's Daredevil. he's a character called Blind Spot.
Gotcha.
He's blind, but all of his other senses are superhuman to compensate, and he's kind of like a ninja, right? And they introduce him to Homelander while he's doing a demonstration of what he can do and stuff, and he's just like, "Oh, yeah, it's amazing. So you're blind, you can't see." And he goes, "Well, how are you able to do all these things?" And Homelander's being, he's got his public persona face on at this point when he's talking to him, and he goes, "Well, I've got super senses. Like what?" He goes, "Well, like super hearing." "Oh, okay, wow. Well, what happens if somebody does this?" And he smashes his hands against his ears really at super speed,
right,
and blows out his eardrums. And he just starts screaming and falls to the floor, and he's bleeding all over the place from his skull. He hit him hard enough it looks like he might have actually fractured his skull too when he did it. And then Homelander's looking down at him. See, if somebody does that, you're just a normal, pathetic guy that can't do anything. We can't use you. And he's like, and it's just, and then he tells the people that arranged this that the Seven has higher standards, basically, is what he tells them. Right. And it's just but when you see it, if you don't know it's coming, and I did spoil this moment for you and anybody else who's listening,
because you're a jerk.
It's a jerk, but it was so the boys are back. This show is back. It's the first big shocking thing that happens right in the first episode, and you see the duplicity of Homelander. I keep wanting to say Highlander, and
that would be funny. There could be only one. I'm the Highlander.
No,
Man,
but
I
think
have trouble not finding that. Where the heck is it?
This season I actually liked a lot. They got into Kimiko, got some good character development. So did Frenchie, of all people. He was the character I was least interested in, but he actually became one of the more interesting in this one.
Here we go. Hold on just a second. So this is for you, Doubting
I am
Thomas.
with you, even to the end of the age.
Doubting Thomas.
Amen.
Wait! Come back, my lord! Please, my lord, I accidentally left my keys with you.
And thanks to your faith,
that's an awful animation.
I will now grant you the keys to the kingdom.
So sorry about the delay there. Well, but I don't know. I'm mixed on the boys.
Yeah, it's definitely a polarizing show. I watch it knowing I'm going to hate some parts of it and love other parts of it.
Right. And I'll tell you, like, Dreamers Out There is like, it's not about the nudity or even the level of graphic violence or anything like that. It's, at least for season 1, it was the gratuitous nature of some of it.
Right.
I don't care. If you have full-on nudity in a story and it makes sense to the story, it does not bother me in the slightest. Like, I would, you had a lot of people that were freaking out about Dr. Manhattan when Watchmen came out, right?
Yeah.
And that didn't bother me at all.
No.
Because
he didn't care.
Yeah, it was about his character, and if you see yourself as elevated above humanity, then what's the point of clothing?
Right. That's exactly what it wasn't. It wasn't a sexualized thing at all. He was naked the same way the statue of David is naked.
Right.
And it demonstrated the fact that he was apart from the rest of humanity. I mean, who's going to make him put clothes on? Mm-hmm. I mean, with season 2 though, there wasn't as much gratuitous sex in it at all. As a matter of fact, I can only think of 2 sex scenes in the whole show in the second season, and they were actual, like, just regular old sex scenes. I expect, with
Like not trying to be over the top graphic and stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't like that orgy party we saw where Ant-Man jumps into a woman's crotch or something.
Right.
It was what it reminded me of. One of the scenes reminded me of was what Frank Miller said about superhero sex. He says, I always thought it was kind of stupid that all these superheroes had these normal girls for girlfriends. He said, why? He's like, he's one of those guys that thinks that that Superman should have been going after Wonder Woman rather than Lois Lane, because Wonder Woman can stand up to him physically enough, and he says that, is there anything more insipid than having a superhero take off his clothes and then he looks just like one of us in a bed naked with somebody? And he goes, no. He says superheroes bring down buildings with their passion. That's what they do when they fight. Their lovemaking should be just as just as powerful. And so when in one of his, I think it was the sequel to The Dark Knight Returns, which wasn't great, but it was good. He had a sex scene between Wonder Woman and Superman, but it was all done where you couldn't see anything because Superman's cape obscured everything. But it just showed them basically in the air and flying over in flight while they were doing it. And all these news broadcasts about these strange phenomenon happening all over the world, like mountains crumbling and seas, rivers bending in the wrong way and stuff like that. It was and it was just a way to make it say, look, this is not the kind of human experience that the kind of experience that humans have. When these guys do it, it's something totally different. And so when there's one scene in Boys season 2 where two super beings have sex, and it's very much not like what humans do. And I thought that was, it was tastefully done. It wasn't disgusting or anything, and I thought that was fine. The other scene was just two people in a bed, and it was flashes of, boom, 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 we're done, that kind of thing.
And
but
Tim was
the
mentioning the sex scene in Hancock, but the funny thing is the sex scene in Hancock actually did serve the story a little bit.
Yeah,
and
it didn't make the movie either.
Yeah, but I mean the movie was not that great, but at least it kind of made sense.
I liked it. I liked Hancock, but to me the sex scene was a little bit too. We didn't need to go there, kind of thing,
right?
For that kind of a movie, especially when there's kids in the movie.
Right.
I just.
And Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, I could see that too. In that because that was kind of the point of their sex scene, was that neither of them were able to cut loose until they met each other.
Right. Yeah.
And then they were both like, wow, we can actually do it now.
Yeah.
But the Superman thing, it's funny because even though it's part of me is like, come on, it's a freaking comic book, right? Frank Miller, you really want to go there because, and that's kind of a problem I have with the beginning of the Dark Ages, is that we started trying to make comic books too adult.
Right.
And throwing superhero sex in there and stuff is unnecessary for the kind of stories that comic books are supposed to be. But on the flip side, I always thought when I was a teenager, it's like, wow, okay, so if Superman actually had sex with Lois Lane, would his sperm kill her?
Oh yeah.
Because it's invulnerable sperm and super fast, and it would just like rip her to shreds.
Yeah, his prostate would propel that stuff, right through her.
Right.
It's those questions. Those are questions that you ask yourself as a kid when you're reading comics and you're starting to learn about sex ed and stuff like that, and in your teens. And that's usually when the teenagers used to stop reading comics, was when they started seeing the ridiculousness of this. And but we had situations where obviously in the 60s, Sue and Reed Richards got married and had a son, Franklin. Okay, we don't need to know how he was conceived.
Right. And we don't need to understand how his stretching powers might come in handy for something like
or how her invisibility powers might have, or her force field powers might have aided in some way. I don't know.
Right.
We didn't need to know that, and it was just okay. They're just like normal people. They got married and had a child. And now you can't have two superheroes get married and have a child without at least some kind of description or throwaway line that puts an image in people's heads. We don't have to know that stuff.
Well, and in fact, and let me say that first of all, Fed, thank you so much. Throws $5 in, says seen season 3 episode 1, not bad. Is it me, or are they just trying to remove anyone pale and male to make sure another Pike Lorca doesn't happen? Well, it's true that we don't see any cis white men in the episode, but again, I don't care about the race and gender of the characters if the story's interesting. Booker, I thought, was an interesting enough character. I don't care about the fact that he's black.
I'd like to point out that Lieutenant Reese has a Welsh first name. It's for a French first name and a Welsh last name, and he's clearly played by a Canadian. So there are cis white males on the show.
That's true. Yes. The clearly Canadian.
Yes. Patrick Kwok Chun, he's Canadian. Yeah. His race should be recognized as, for what it is.
Canadians represent. But I do think that whether or not they include any white men, I don't care. What I care about is, are they going to improve the show? And besides that, we got Strange New Worlds is going to feature Pike and Spock. So, I'm not worried about that. But I do like Booker so far. I'm curious to see where they go with his character. And, we'll see. We'll see what they do. And you know what? Quite frankly, I would rather have them not have a single white man in the show than to bring on white men just to insult them.
Right.
So that's just my opinion on it.
I want Boyce to come to the captain's, cabin with a martini every once in a while too. Yes. I do want to see that. So
Malfeas wants to know: do you ever see this TV show Powers? I've heard of it, never watched it.
That was a comic book that Brian Michael Bendis did, starting about 20 years ago, and he created it expressly to shop it to Hollywood to have a series made. And the show doesn't look much like the comics, so it's kind of, I'm not a big fan of Brian Michael Bendis, so I won't watch it, but
it's as far as what they do with Discovery Season 3, I'm hopeful, but I'm not holding my breath.
So have you heard this thing about Gal Gadot?
Yes, that's why I wanted to talk about that briefly. So I actually listened to a few people's talking about this whole thing with Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot or however you say it, being cast as Cleopatra. And I tried to, and the funny thing is, first of all, on YouTube is flooded with videos talking about how Gal Gadot is under this, barrage of attacks from people that are mad at her for accepting the role. And apparently this barrage of attacks is a couple of angry tweets.
Right.
Because you start searching YouTube, you don't find a lot of videos about how horrible Gal Gadot is for being cast as Cleopatra. Which you see a bunch of videos of outrage about the outrage. And so I think that this is people trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I as far as should she be cast as Cleopatra, hey, if the movie's good, I don't care.
Right.
Now, as far as what did Cleopatra look like, I listened to a few experts, and I wasn't watching videos that were made like this week. I was watching some old videos about Cleopatra and stuff, and arguments about what she may have looked like. And the honest truth is, we don't know what she looked like.
Right.
The hieroglyphic-like images that we see of her were all made hundreds of years after her death.
Right.
And so we absolutely do not know what her skin tone was. We absolutely do not know exactly what her facial features were. We only see artists' interpretation of her from after her passing. And so you could now. People have argued that she was Greek. People have argued that she's actually not technically Greek. She is from what is it? Macedonia, which is not technically Greek. And also people arguing that maybe was her mother may have been an indigenous Egyptian, that she and all this other stuff. I do not care. I might have a problem if they cast Scarlett Johansson as Cleopatra.
Right.
But Gal Gadot? Really? You're going to bitch about that? Gal Gadot is already olive-skinned. And so I really don't have a big problem with it. But I honestly don't care all that much because you know how quickly I'm going to run to the theaters to see a new Cleopatra movie? I'm not.
Well, if your wife wants to see it, you'll go.
She doesn't really care.
Yeah, but if she gets a wild hair or something and all of a sudden wants to go see it, you'll go.
I would if she really wanted to see it, but at the same time, I actually talked to her about it briefly today, and while she does think that they probably should have cast someone a little darker than Gal Gadot, she's not like up in arms about it. Because it's like, hey, you want to piss me off? Let's talk about Elizabeth Taylor. So
my honest opinion on it is that those one or two tweeters who tweeted about that were thinking of Nefertiti,
right?
Because Nefertiti, for example, on Doctor Who is played by a woman of color, British woman of color, of course, but a woman of color, and there's been. And the other thing I was thinking of was, when I went back to college after I left the Navy, everything is hyper politicized, even 20 years ago when you went to college. And one of the things that they really tried to hit home to us was that the Egyptians were black. And they cited Cecil B. DeMille, the filmmaker, as being the root cause of why white people in America seem to think that the Egyptians weren't black, but then you've got historians that come out and say, well, they weren't black, but they were darker than white, but they weren't sub-Saharan African. They were
right.
They had some members. I mean, they actually had a lot of diversity within them, but generally speaking, what we think of as Egyptians were closer to Libyan than Nubian. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, then you have Gal Gadot playing, Wonder Woman, the female Superman, essentially, in kind of comic book superheroes, getting a part like Cleopatra. I think they might have had crossed wires or something, but I definitely think that you're correct that it was just a couple of tweets and everybody has decided to make this. It must be a slow news week in entertainment and superhero entertainment and stuff because. There's other things happening in the world right now that, but I mean,
honestly, I think it's people looking for something to fight about, and it's because it's such a not story. Mm-hmm.
I do like though that the tweeters were shut down almost immediately as far as being corrected on their historical accuracy and what they perceived of Cleopatra to be appropriate. Elizabeth Taylor was okay. I mean, I didn't. I'm not a huge fan of Elizabeth Taylor's, but I mean,
right.
The story of Cleopatra is not one that excites me as much as Joan of Arc or I could name any number of them right now, but it's.
And honestly, tell a story that we don't know, like Nefertiti or something, because most people know that name, but they don't know anything about her.
Yeah.
So
I personally think Nefertiti was a descendant of the Nephilim, but that's not.
I have no idea. I don't know jack about Nefertiti, honestly.
You know how that statue, that bust of Nefertiti that you always see, she's wearing that. Big
I 3D printed one from Mrs. Anti-Tracker.
Yeah, I think the reason why she wore that was because her head was in there. That her head was actually that shape.
Okay.
I have no way of proving it.
That's just your theory. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
That's just what I think.
Yeah.
I think she might have been in the because have you ever seen the big elongated skulls of Paraka?
Mm-mm.
These human skulls that they found, but they look like cone heads, and they're not that thing people do to change the shape of their skulls to make them look like a cone. These are actually like 35 to 40% more cranial volume than a human skull, which you can't achieve by doing the thing that they do.
You need to start doing an Exozone podcast kind of thing.
I've thought about it.
You do talk about Darren's World of Weirdness. Which, by the way, well, I'm going to wrap it up here in just a minute, but I'm kind of excited about this, so I want to say something real quick. I don't know. It may only be for a couple of weeks, but it could go for a couple of months. Either way, I'm looking forward to it. Is that it sounds like my schedule after this coming week is going to shift temporarily while I'm training some new people coming into the company that I work for. And during that time frame, my days off are going to change to Friday and Saturday. And what that means in a nutshell is that, number one, the Friday night live stream will start earlier and go later. I'm going to make every Friday a longer format show. And so that way people can come and go throughout the night. And I told Bird about this earlier, because I'd have, like, if I start a couple hours earlier, then he can come on for the first couple hours, that kind of thing. And then Saturday, I'm still that's going to be family day and going to church and that kind of stuff. The Sunday morning live stream will be unaffected, but then I'll be able to do live streams during the week at a more reasonable hour, because I'll be off work a little bit earlier during this temporary time. So I'm excited about that, but I'm really excited because the Friday night live streams will be a lot more fun. And yeah, Tim, maybe I'll get a chance to play a little Elite Dangerous along the way.
Those poor people.
What poor people?
The people you have to train.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just kidding.
You're such a jerk.
You know what I'm going to do? You're going to tell them to tune into your live streams?
I'm going to tell them, here's all you got to do to pass my training course. Eat this chip. And then first you put this chip in your mouth, you can't spit anything out, and then hold a normal conversation on a phone for 5 minutes, and you double your salary.
It should be a boot camp test.
Oh man, I tell you.
I know, put that chip in your mouth, trooper. Put that chip in your mouth. It's just
and you get some jerk that's like used to super spicy food. Oh, okay, hey, wash it down with a little bit of this. Come on. Number 12, Death Incarnate.
Oh man.
All right, so Daniel, I know you're always quiet, but you're always nice to have around, my friend.
I am.
Thanks for hanging out with us, and Darren, thanks for being the usual jerk.
I apologize for every jerky thing I said tonight. Didn't I?
I'm just giving you a hard time. And again, I know I said it earlier, but just in case you came in late, Life with Matthew is just fine. He is not in the hospital. He's not dying. His child is not in the mines.
He died. His body is decomposing in the anti-trucker's garage.
Wow. Yeah. So Darren is a jerk. And so, because of that, Darren is now going to sing a song for everybody.
Oh, Canada, how I hate that place. Oh, Canada, I'm gonna kick Andy Trekker right in the face.
Oh, and Piano Dean wants to know if I can play. I didn't know you had a new video out, Piano Dean. Go ahead and you can drop that link, my friend. And if you're friends always hide the body, don't they? Yes, indeed. They wouldn't be true friends if they didn't hide the body. But no, I wanted to make sure everybody knew that, because I know Bird was really looking forward to getting Matthew's kids in the mines, but yeah, it's not going to happen. And so the kids will avoid the mines for at least another week. So Piano Dean, what's the deal with your new video? And now, of course, I got to wait for Piano Dean to respond while the giant fish swims behind Darren's head.
Remember to wipe front to back, kids.
Wow, that's...
Hey, one time you signed off from one of your streams going, "Don't forget to wipe."
I know. It's like... I hate that. Okay. Oh, my piano rendition of Nerdrotic's theme. Oh, did you do a theme song for Nerdrotic? Really? I didn't even know about that. That is awesome.
You turncoat, you traitor.
Oh, come on.
Did he pay you well?
I hope he better have paid you.
He better have it, yeah.
He can afford to pay you the big bucks. You better have collected some serious money from him.
See, now he's starting to move on to bigger channels. He's going to leave us behind. And
yeah, he doesn't care about us anymore.
I don't even have a Piano Dean theme yet.
Yeah, you need to do a the crazy semen.
I haven't. No, thank you. I just threw up a little bit in my mouth. Thank you very much for that.
So remember, when you say semen, Darren thinks of things in his mouth.
Oh,
just stating the fact.
I had that one coming. This evening.
Yes, he had it coming in his mouth. Okay. All right. Enough. All right. Good night, everybody.
You get the last word. I'll see you later.
Yeah, well, of course I do. It's my show.
I know it's your show.
Yeah. Have a good one. Say good night, Daniel.
Night.
Right.
Making your way with the nerds.
And what I'm gonna let's do this. So I'm going to
taking a break from hating JJ sure would help a lot.
There. So I muted and I know you guys can't hear it, but everybody else will hear it. I muted the credits so that now it's going to play the Nerdrotic theme song, so that we can get a little bit of play here. Let's see how it sounds.
So yeah, everyone's afraid that Discovery's going to go back to the past at the end of the season, but they're not, because all time travel technology has been destroyed.
Hold on,
Red Angels.
Credits are still rolling.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
They can.
Oh shit. Sorry.
You son of a bitch, anti-tracker!